also worked on J2ME and J2ME Polish and also BlackBerry. All right, so that is the experience that I have, and certainly I'm going to help you out in understanding the very basics of Android application development during the 6 weeks of action that we have today. All right. So Morgan, I'm still not able to get any responses from your side. Are you able to hear me up? Can you respond back onto the chat window? I'll wait for Morgan to respond back. We'll again wait for another few minutes for everybody to join in. All right. We still have a few attendees who are supposed to join in. We'll just wait for another 3 minutes for everyone to join in. All right. Good to hear that, Morgan, from you, because it was just that you were not able to respond. You were not the one who was responding. All right. So Morgan, we'll wait for another few minutes for everybody to join in. As soon as everybody joins in, we'll be starting up with this session. All right. In the meanwhile, other people are joining in. Just what I want from everyone is a brief introduction of themselves. All right. All the attendees that I have, I just wanted to have a brief introduction of all the attendees. And I also wanted to know what is it in this course that is fascinating them to join this course, and what all is the career path that they see in terms of Android application development. All right. So I'll go here from top to bottom. Here I'll first of all, I'll unmute every single attendee one by one. I'll unmute Ajay first. Ajay, I hope, all right, I'll just assume, I'm under the assumption that everybody has joined in with a headset and a mic. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody has joined in with a headset and a mic. Can you all respond back onto the chat window? All right, so I'll unmute every single attendee one by one here. And as I said, you all have to briefly tell me about yourselves and also what is it in this course that interests you all. All right, so I'll unmute Ajay first. All right, Ajay, I think everybody can hear you up. Hey Ajay, just tell us something about yourself, because we are more interested in knowing about all the attendees, and then we'll start up with the session. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ajay. I'm a graduate student at University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I work on the image processing stuff mostly, so I want to know more about the mobile stuff also at the same time, and
Okay.
at what extent I can implement the image processing on the mobile devices.
Okay, good to know that, Ajay. We'll definitely help you out in understanding all the basic concepts of mobile application development. All right, then we have Morgan next. All right, Morgan, I'll unmute you up. Can you also tell us something about yourself?
Okay, my name is Morgan. I'm a student from Lincoln University. I want to know much about mobile application. That's the reason why I have to enroll.
Okay, so it's specific to Android, or is it like you are interested in knowing about all the platforms, Morgan?
Specific to Android.
Okay, all right, good to know that, Morgan. I'll mute you again. All right. All right, then we have Naveen next. All right, Naveen, can you also tell us something about yourself? All right, now it seems to be getting better.
Hi, I'm Naveen. I have a good number of experience. I've worked in Java for the last 13, 14 years. And,
okay.
Regarding mobile, it's just interest, which is because of which I'm coming to the session. I always update myself with the new technologies. And
okay.
Mobile is something that is coming these days, and that's the reason why I joined this course.
All right, good to know that, Naveen, and it is really a good thing to be matching up with what has been trending in the market. All right, then we have Prabha J next. All right, Prabha, can you just respond back onto the chat window if you can hear me up? Because you have just joined in, so just wanted to know whether am I audible to you or not. Prabha, can I have responses back onto the chat window? You have access to the chat windows. I hope everybody knows that. Everybody has access to the chat windows. All right, Riddhiman has also just joined in. All right, Prabha, so we are going through an introduction of every single attendee here. So you are next. Should I unmute you up? Have you joined in with a headset and a mic? Can I have the responses back onto the chat window? All right. What I'll do is I'll just unmute Rachit first. All right, Prabha, I think I'll unmute you. All right. Prabha, can you also tell us something about yourself? What is the background and why are you supposed, or what is it in this course that is interesting you? I hope, Prabha, you can speak up because you have been unmuted. No problems. I think Prabha is not here. All right, Rachit, you are next. Can you also tell us something about yourself?
Hi, I study at British International School, Shanghai, and I have a previous experience with Android and a few other programming languages. So I thought I might want to increase my bounds in Android and be more professional.
All right, good to know that, Rachit. Rachit, can you also tell me about your age, because you sound your age sounds a lot lesser by the way you speak up.
My age is 12 years old.
Got it. Because it was, I could make out that you are quite young. All right, good to know that, Rachit. So we are all, it goes to all the attendees. We again have one more student who is just a 12-year-old guy. All right, so it is going to be a mix and match of experience. We have one who has 13 years of work ex, and we have one who has just joined in. All right, I'll unmute Rachit again. All right, Praveen has also joined in. All right, Riddhiman, you are next. Can you also tell us something about yourself? Riddhiman, I hope you can hear me now. Or is there some mic adjustments going on? All right, no problems. Mute Riddhiman again. All right, Praveen has just joined in. Praveen, can you hear me up? Can you respond back onto the chat window? All right, Praveen, we were going through a small exercise that we usually do in order to let all the attendees tell us about yourself. All right, so I'm unmuting you. You can also tell us something about yourself and what is it in this course that is like that is something which interests you. So I'll unmute you up and I'll let you speak up.
Okay.
You can speak up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, myself Praveen Malum from Pune, and I'm working on a .NET platform for last 4 or 5 years. I had some basic of iPhone development too. I did 2 or 3 projects in iPhone development too. I'm working here in Whitefish Technology as a team lead, and just for curiosity, I'm starting with Android development, looking for the just a bit curious from starting with mobile development. So I thought I should start with the mobile development with Android now. And I had Java experience a bit about in a college life only, so I don't have any industrial experience in Java.
All right, good to know that, Praveen. All right. Okay, so we have gone through all the process here. Let's start with the very first class for Android application development. All right, so by the end of this class, you'll be able to be working with a very basic Android application. You'll be able to create a single activity Android application with various user interfaces. All right. So first of all, let me tell you about Android application development. I hope everybody has got the installation process done on their respective machines. Can you all respond back on the chat window? The Eclipse environment setup that is required for Android application development. All right, I have just one response yet from Ajay. Can I have responses from everyone? Rachit, yes, you can use it on Mac. In that case, you have to download the specific version that comes up for Mac machines. All right. Then that will work for you, Rachit. No problems about that. All right, so once you have installed the Eclipse environment, it would look something like this. I hope everybody agrees with me here. This is an Eclipse environment that you'll see whenever you have installed any Eclipse environment IDE. Why we call it an IDE is because it is an integrated development environment. So if you know about, let me tell you about Eclipse a little. So Eclipse is a multi-language software development environment which comprises of an integrated development environment. What I mean by an integrated development environment is there are various utilities that are provided to you by Eclipse itself. So instead of doing a Java C and going on to the command line, you can straight away run your projects on the Eclipse platform. So that is something which is the power, or say, which is actually leveraging the power of Eclipse to us as developers. So we do not need to go onto the CMD every now and then and do a Java C in order to compile our projects. Various users can extend its abilities by installing the plugins that are written for the Eclipse platform. Let me tell you about a few plugins that I usually use. One of them is the SQLite browser that I use. One of them is the SVN repository manager that I use. One of them, if you would have downloaded the ADT bundle without the plugin, that is, you would have downloaded Eclipse separately, then you would have also installed the ADT plugin, all right, for Eclipse environment development. So it's like users can extend their capabilities by installing those various plugins that are all right. Now I think everybody can hear me up. All right. It's just some network connectivity issue that I had. All right. All right. So let's take a look at the Eclipse environment for Android application development. Let me go to the Eclipse environment first of all and show you how exactly, whenever you create a new Android application, how exactly it looks like and how you'll be creating all the screens, all these references into the Android application development environment. I go on to File, I go on to New, I go on to Android application project. Here you see a few parameters that I have to fill in, right? I hope everybody is with me here. Any person having any doubts at any point of time can respond back onto the chat window, or if they feel like they can always raise their hands. By raising their hands, what I'll be doing is I'll be allowing you to speak up. All right, so there might be a condition wherein you might not be able to type up onto the screen. So in that case, if you raise your hands, I'll be allowing you to speak up. I hope everybody can see the raise hands window on their screens. Can I have confirmation? All right, so here it is asking you for an application name, then it is asking you for a project name, then it is asking you for a package name. Let me also, all right, Morgan, can you not see that? Can you see the raise hand icon onto the window? All right, I'll just show you. Morgan, can you see my screen? It looks something like this. The one that you're seeing here, it would be the opposite of what is being shown here. And as for closing, or say, it is just to lower all the hands, you will be having the opposite of it. Can you just check onto the window? The same, go to webinar window. It will be available on that. Just check and confirm, Morgan. All right. So here you go. So whenever you'll be creating an Android application, you will have to first key in a variety of parameters. First of them is the application name. So the application name is the name of the application that you're going to create. So since this is our first Android batch, so let's give it a name. I say first Android batch. You see a few things. The project name necessarily is the same as the application name, because whatever application you are creating, it has to be a project. All right. Then comes another parameter which says package name. Let me tell you about this parameter. Whenever you will be installing an Android application onto the device, or I would take it like that, whenever you install an Android application from the Google Play Market, what it does is it creates an application storage for itself. I'll take Paint here and I'll show you like this. For example, this is the application binary that you had, which is called the APK or the Android package. I hope people will be aware about this. What all are the binaries, what all are the Android packages or the file system that gets installed onto the device. I hope people are aware about these terminologies. If not, just let me know onto the chat window. I'll be more clear, or say I'll be more descriptive with my approach here. Alright, so we have a file which is called an APK file that actually gets installed onto the device. Alright, Praveen, I'll just explain it to you. It's like, Praveen, whenever we, it's like, I hope you have worked with it. Alright, so let's talk about an exe file. Alright, first of all, let's talk about an exe file. So an exe file is an executable file. No problems, Morgan. It's not something specific to Android. Alright, I'll just let you know. Alright. So an exe file is an executable file that goes into the machine and installs itself. Everybody agrees with me or not? Alright, so when I say an exe file, similar to that in Android terms, I have an APK file or the executable file which will install the application of mine onto the machine, onto the device. Alright? Now I hope this is clear to everyone. The Android package, any person having any doubts here? What exactly is an Android package? It is majorly an executable or a binary file that installs itself onto the device, majorly like that. You have exe files for Windows applications. Similarly, we have an APK file for all the Android applications. Any person having any doubts here? Any smallest of doubts? I'm always there to help you out. Even if there is any smallest of doubts, just be very precise and just ask me up. I hope I'm audible to everyone. No responses on the chat window yet. And again, one more thing that I wanted to tell you everyone. If this is clear, just write a yeah, Y onto the chat window so that I can have the understanding whether this is clear to everyone or not. Just write a Y, everyone. I'll tell you, Morgan, I'll tell you exactly how it's being handled. So what happens is, whenever we have the APK file installs itself onto the machine. All right, my machine as a device might be having hundreds of APKs. Everybody agrees with me, right? It might be having hundreds of APKs, or it might be having around 10-20 of APKs. So if you see here, what exactly happens in the application folder is that they have got a memory slot for themselves assigned. Every single application that I have, right, wrong tool here, every single application that I have installed onto my device will be having a separate slot for itself wherein it houses all the application files. Any person having any doubts here? It's like I'm storing all the necessary resources that I want to use for my application to use at a single place. It's very much like that, right? Now, this particular area of what we call this particular region is not accessible to the user. Otherwise, if it had been accessible to the user might make few changes onto my application's resources and my application will start giving me errors. Everybody understands what I'm trying to say here? It's like, as a user, I'm not able to have access to these folders. But there's an exception here. If I'm a root user, that is, I have done rooting on my phone and I'm the one who has all the user rights, or say all the admin rights on my device, then only this region is accessible to me. Only then, if I have the root users access to my application, I have access to all the resources. Because it's like I am the one who's acting as a super admin onto the device. Everybody understands the concept of packages, how the application will be residing inside the package and how it is termed up. But I haven't told you something. If you see here, I gave it a package name which says com.example.firstAndroidBatch. This particular package that you see here is the unique identifier here that identifies which application is being housed with which folder. So I say com.example.firstAndroidBatch. So the naming of this particular folder will be done with the help of the package name that I'm giving, which is going to be com.example.firstAndroidBatch. Got it? Any person having any doubts here? The naming of the folder that actually or say holds all the resources is being generated or being governed by this particular property. Can I have responses back onto the chat window? Praveen, any responses? Anyone? Rachit, I'm more interested in having responses from you. Now let's talk about something else. All right, Android, if you know, run on multiple operating systems. That is, there are few devices that are running on Android OS 2.2. That is the Froyo version. There are a few devices that are running on 4.1. And if you talk about the LG Nexus 4, that is the Google flagship model, that is presently running on Android OS 4.2. All right. So there are a few variety of parameters that I need to keep in mind whenever I'm creating an application. First is, what is the target version, or say what is the target audience that I have for my application? Anyone who can tell me about this? Should it be the maximum target devices, or should it be the minimum number of target devices? Anyone? It is going to be a both-way process. All right, Praveen says maximum. Rachit also says maximum. But there's a catch here. There are a few properties, all right? If I talk about, for example, a camera property. Camera property is something that is dependent onto the device, right? Everybody agrees with me. It's like if I'm having a device that is having an 8 megapixel camera, similarly I'm having a device that is having a 2 megapixel camera. So the camera is intuitive to all the devices, and it also represents the hardware configuration that is applying to all the devices. So if I talk about all these kind of parameters, I should be able to know what exactly is my target audience. When I'm doing an in-house sale, that is, I'm building my applications for my in-house application development, and I know the target audiences, then it is better to have the minimum number of target devices, just because I'm not catering to all the hardware requirements. Everybody got my point here? All right, but if I'm going on to publish my application onto the Google Play, then in that case what is going to happen is I need to have all the devices, but Google Play will filter it by itself. Like if a device is having such a hardware configuration that my application might not support it, so the Google Play account will not show that particular APK for me to download. You might have seen a very, I think whenever you went to Google Play, you might have seen something which says this application is compatible with your device. How many of you have seen that? Have you ever been to Google Play sometime? All right, Rachit has seen that. All right, so it is like Google Play filters the application depending on the request it is coming from. So if it is coming from a Samsung Galaxy S3, it might be having all the properties open. All right, so then in that case, most of the applications would be downloadable. But if I say a device that is running on Android OS version 1.6, very old Android OS version, which is nowadays not supported, so it will not show that particular application onto the Google Play for that particular device. Everybody got my point, what I'm trying to say? So these parameters are the one that govern it. First one is the minimum required SDK. What is the base level support of Android OS that I want in my application? It means to what extent I can hold applications onto the devices. So here you see a minimum required SDK says API level 8, which is Froyo version. So the least number of support that I have for my application is till the OS version 4 Froyo. If I try to install this application below version 2.2, I'll be getting an unable to parse exception onto the package. Everybody got my point here? What am I doing with the minimum required SDK? What am I trying to do with the minimum required SDK? Right? Now let's talk about something else. Here we have second parameter, which is the target SDK. The target SDK is the SDK that I'm testing my application on. Just make sure the words that I'm using. I'm innovate testing my application on Android OS 4.1. Target SDK does not signify anything more than this. It is just that I have tested my application to be working fine on Android OS 4.1. Everybody got my point here for the target SDK. Just remember these terminologies are very important to understand whenever you are building any Android application for mass usage. Alright, then we have a compile time, or say compile with option. Alright, let's talk about it like that. I'm having a few set of APIs that are available to me in Android OS 2.2. Alright, now if I talk about Android OS 4.1, I'm having 16 more such APIs that have been added up to the package to aid the developers in using them. So in all, like I had 8 in 2.2, now I'm having 22 in 4.1. It's like adding 16 more, it gives me a 22 API count. I hope everybody understands what is APIs. Any person who's not able to understand what exactly are the APIs? I might be using this term very often, so just let me know if there is any sort of doubt in anybody's mind about application programmer's interface. Anyone? Can I have responses back on the chat window? If this is, it's like if it is all fine, then I am okay. But if there is any sort of doubt, you can respond back onto the chat window. I'll wait for everybody to respond back because I'm not concerned about 2 or 3 responses here. Everybody has to respond back. APIs, any sort of doubts in understanding APIs here? Morgan, this goes to you because it might be something specific to Android here. No problems, Morgan. I'll tell you about APIs. APIs are like application programmer's interface. For example, I have an input box. I'll show you like this. No problems if you're new here because I'll make you clarify everything. Alright, so here if I have an edit box, alright, an edit box is something that holds some text, right? For example, it holds my name. Now, there have been few methods that are available to me whenever I work on the object instance of this edit text. It's like it can give me a method which says get text. Morgan. It can give me a method which says get text, and what will this method give me is the value that it contains. Alright, so these are the set of APIs that are available. This get text is a part of the application programmer's interface that helps you identify what exactly is the text being held in the edit box. Alright, Morgan, any sort of doubts that you have here? I'll wait for Morgan to respond back and then we'll start again. Alright. Alright, so then we have the compile with. As I said, instead of using 8, what should I be using? Should I be using 22 or should I be going back my compile time version to 8? Everyone, Respond back quickly onto the chat window. If I'm having a set of APIs which are 22, all right, and I'm having a set of APIs which are 8, which should I be using in order to compile my application? Just see, what am I doing? I'm having the compile here. I'm not having anything else. It's like the set of APIs that I'll be using in order to create my application. That is what it means. If the API is not available in 2.2, it will not work on 2.2. Simple as that. Rachit says 8. And Praveen says similar to the target, I guess. It's just that Rachit, Praveen, as I said, it's like something which is I'm testing my application with. All right. So it is always advisable, all right, to use the maximum API set just on the pretext that it will give you the maximum number of, I would say, the maximum number of APIs. But just make sure that there are no such APIs that you're using while creating your application that are hardware specific. If it is software specific, then it can automatically have a wrapper around it. API that has been added up on, say, Android OS 4.2 might have a wrapper class that does the same work in 2.2. But if there is something that is very hardware specific, then you have to make sure that you build it up or compile it up with an API level 2.2. I hope now everybody agrees what is the difference between these two terms here. That's correct, Naveen. Naveen, you got it right. It is always backward compatible. Backward compatible in its sense because it provides you, Naveen, with all the wrappers included inside the API, right? So that is why it is called backward compatible. All right, Stephen has just joined in. Stephen, I hope you can hear me up. That's correct. I'll just show you how you can do that, Praveen. Praveen has asked me a question here. This goes to everyone. Is it possible to change this configuration once we create the project? Yes, we can always do that. I'll show you from exactly which place you'll be able to do that. All right, I click on next here. So it is asking me a variety of parameters like create a custom launcher icon, create an activity. So let me also tell you about an activity and what exactly a layout is. For example, whenever you create any Android application, there are two components to every screen that you see onto the window. There are two components. First component which we always talk about is called the activity, or we say the screen that we are going to refer to, right? So the screen that we see on this onto the application, whenever the application gets installed onto the device, the screen that we see is called an activity. However, this activity does not have UI interfaces of its own. It does not have a label. It does not have a text box. It does not have a toggle button. It does not have a checkbox of its own. This activity is a mere holder of data, or say mere holder of the user interfaces. So whatever I have to have in the activity have to come from a file which is called a layout file. And the layout file supports what schema? It supports the XML schema. All right. So whatever UI generation that you need to show on the activity have to go here. All right. It goes here. Everything goes here like this. And my activity schema is something which we say the blocks. What all blocks we have inside the user interface, Rachit. It's like whatever we have inside the user interface. Then we have, what we do is we actually refer to this file from my activity. My activity says, here's a method. I'll show you I'll also make it use. I'll also make use of this method. Here I say set content view, and then I'll be passing in a unique identifier that identifies this particular XML that I have to my activity. So it's like I'm having a separate UI. It's majorly a MVC pattern that we follow. All right, a model view controller. So here we have view is this particular file or the layout file. Then models are the object models that we'll be working on. And if you have to have any controller on this view, we always do it from the help of the activity. Any person having any doubts here till this point of time? Because I need the concepts to be clear to everyone. If there is any sort of question, any sort of queries, you can always respond back onto the chat window. Alright, so that is how we'll be doing the UI creation. Alright, so it says you have to create an activity. So I have this checkbox checked because I am actually creating an activity. I click on next here. It is showing me the set of icons that it will be using for the application launcher icon. Alright, so you see image name, application launcher icon. So if I want to have a different set of icon which shows whenever the application gets installed onto my device, I can choose a different launcher icon from here. Presently, I'll just make it use the same launcher icon here. I click on next. Then there are various screen flows that I can choose from. Alright, so for our today's class, we'll just work with a blank activity, but as we move on, we can explore the other activities as well. It's like how the UI has to look like. Alright, there is a full screen activity, which is like then you have a login activity, which is a customer login. Then you have a master detail, which usually is our UI that is working on the tablets. Then you have a settings activity, which shows you all the settings window. Alright, so we'll start with the blank activity for now, and we'll make changes to our application projects as and now whenever we'll be needing them. Alright, so I chose the blank activity here. I click on next. As I said, there is an activity and there is a layout. I hope everybody can see it now. I am having an activity name, which is the name main activity, but I'm also having a layout associated with that activity, which says activity_main. Everybody agrees what my point here was. It is actually binding this layout to the activity during its creation only. I'm not getting much responses here. I think am I going wrong here? Naveen, I guess no responses from you, mate. Then I click on finish here. So once I click on finish here, everything goes into the picture, or it will create a project for me on the left. And you can see that. Alright. So what all are the basic components of any Android application? Now we'll explore them one by one. Here you see there's a source file. Alright, Naveen, I'll let you, I would ask you to explain about this. Can you respond back onto the chat window? What does a source folder contains in a Java application folder? Alright, you can respond back onto the chat window. This is for you. That's correct. So Naveen says the source folder in any of the Java application packages contains the source files, or what we call the .java files inside our application package. It's like whatever file coding I have to do, or say the Java files that I have to create, will be added up under the source folder. It's like all the coding part that has to go, it has to go into the source file. If you see here, I chose a package when I was creating my main activity. It says com.example.firstAndroid batch. So this is the package that I use in order to create my activities. So my activity is main activity.java. I'll show you this particular file. See what it contains. It contains a main activity class which extends the activity class. So let me tell you about this. Activity class is the base class of all the activities that you are going to use in your Android application project. Every single screen that you are going to see has to have an activity as its parent class. Everybody understands the meaning of extension here. It's like I'm actually overriding, or say subclassing, activity class in my main activity. Can I have responses back onto the chat window? Whenever I extend the activity class, I also have access to few of the overridden methods. Overridden methods are the ones that I have to provide implementation of. In the main activity class, they have been declared as blank. Alright, so I have to create, or say in the main activity class, they might be having its own instantiation, or say any usage, but I need to override these methods inside my activity in order for them to have a different behavior, right? Any person having any doubts here in understanding what is extension, what all are the overridden methods here? Anyone? All right, let's move ahead then. Here you see a first call goes to super, that is the parent class, and calls its on create using a bundle saved instance state. I'll talk about the bundle saved instance state in a few moments from now. But as of now, you can just ignore this line for the time being and just concentrate on some lines which are important. It says set content view. Can anybody tell me what is set content view doing here? I have already explained about it. Anyone? That's correct. It's not calling the UI Prabha. To be very precise, it is actually loading up a layout to the file. It's like giving it a layout so that it can render the XML file onto it, right? And if you see here, it is going through a different notation. It says r.layout.activity_main. However, if I see here, my application file activity main is housed under resources, layout, activity main. So it should have been res.layout.activity main. However, it's not that like that. It's r.layout.activity main. Let me tell you about this concept as well. It's like whatever resources that you have in your application package, or whatever resources get bundled with the application package, they are not referenced by their actual folder naming convention. Every single resource that you create, or say every resource that is housed under the res folder, has got a unique integer identifier for it, which is generated by Android framework automatically. So you do not do anything here. It is something that is generated by the framework. If I show you general folder, under this is, can you see a file which says r.java? Can everybody see this file up? If I open this up, see what is written here. At the top, what is written? It says it is an auto-generated file, do not modify. So what the system does is, all the resources that you are having in your application are given a unique integer identifier for all the resources. Like if I'm having a launcher icon, I have a unique resource identifier for it. If I'm having a menu in my application, I'm having a unique resource identifier for it. If I'm having a layout, which is I'm having an activity_main layout, so I also have a unique resource identifier for it, so that I do not refer to the actual file. Instead, I just refer to a binding from r.java file. Now, I hope everybody would be getting some insight into why mobility is called something which has to reserve the resources. You always have to work with least number of resources. Now, I hope this difference is clear to everyone. It's not something that I'm referring as an actual file. I'm just referencing an index of that file, or you can think about it like a hash map. I'm having a file which is located at some XYZ location, but I'm referencing to that particular file using this particular integer identifier. Any person having any doubts here? What is r.java file is something which everybody should understand very clearly. All the layouts, all the resources that I'm going to use in my application, whether they are images, whether they are layouts, whether they are anything, will have a unique number generated for themselves using the Android framework. The unique number is something that we will make use of while creating our application in order to refer to those UI instances, or say all those references of the objects. Any person having any doubts, any queries, any questions? I'll wait for everybody to respond back. All right, let's move ahead then. So r.java file is the one that is automatically created for all the resources that I'm going to make use of in my application. All right, if you see here, I have a set content view which says r.layout.activity_main. So it is ultimately referring to this particular file that I have in my layout folder, which says activity underscore main. Now let's talk about on options create menu. This is something which you see. I'll just run this up. In order to run this application, I already have the emulator open. I'll show you how you'll be creating an emulator for yourself. But just see by running this application so that you can know what exactly is the menu options. I'll let you know about the emulator in a few moments. Alright, I think the DDMS is down here. Alright, now it will run up. Alright, I'll just close the simulator and I'll just try to run this up because it's giving me a timeout. Either I have to increase the timeout. Alright. So let it load up, let it start up. In the meanwhile, let's continue our conversation that we were talking about. A menu is something which goes onto the screen whenever you press the menu button. Alright, so the menu button inflates a UI which is inflated with the help of a menu inflator. If you see here, the UI that will be inflated for the menu is housed under r.menu. Alright, let me show you what exactly it contains. It contains one single item which is holding the text as menu settings. I'll show you the text. It says settings. Alright, so it is holding a text which is settings onto the menu window. Let it load up and then we'll see a running example of our very first Hello World application that we have created. Alright, so I have the general build config. If you see here, it says if my application has to be debugged, so it just shows a debug mode as true. So that is what the build config contains. Then we have Android 4.2. Remember what API we were using in order to compile our application? Can anybody tell me which is the API that we were using in order to compile our application? Alright, that means it says 4.2. So how many references, or say what all API references that I have to make use of in my project are actually of Android level 4.2. And you can see that. All the application, Java application resources that I have in my application are of the API level 4.2. So these are all the Java references that I can make use of in my application during its creation. So it's like a mix of both. A few APIs are Java APIs and a few APIs are the Android APIs. And you can see that very first application of yours onto the screen which says a mere hello world to the user. If I click on the menu here, you see a settings being displayed. So this is what I was talking about in terms of menu settings. I hope this is clear till this point of time. What all are the settings? How is a layout being inflated? How is a layout being used in an activity, and how you should go about things. So here we have the jars. So the jars are already intact here. How did we create the settings? Rachit, if you see here, my strings.xml files contains a menu settings string. Alright, I'm using this menu settings string in my menu folder. Activity underscore main.xml is the file name, and in the menu section I just need to give it a item. That is only the text I need to specify, and the automatic creation of layout will be done for the menus, because menus are usually shown in the same manner on all the UIs. So that is why we have an auto creation of menus. Alright, so that is what, if I need to have multiple items, what I can just do is I can just copy this up and add up as many number of elements to my menu items. I'll just show you, and it will inflate the same number of elements. Now instead of one, you'll be finding 3 menus here. Now if I click on menu, you'll see 3 menus here. Alright, so it's like a single tile is being reserved for a single item here. So that is how it's creating all the menus here. Alright, so here I have the activity underscore main. Now let's move down the dependencies, any dependencies if I have in my project. So whenever I'm building my API with 4.2, I have to have the Android version 4 dependencies. So if I was building it with 2.2, I'd never required this dependency. So I hope everybody understands why am I having these dependencies? Because my base version is what? What is my base version here? Can I have some responses? My base version is not 4.2, Praveen. It's not 4.2. I'm talking about the base version. That's correct. It is API level 8. So that's why I need to have some supporting Java libraries that might not be available in API level 2.2, right? Then comes under the asset folder. So sometimes what happens is I might be required to load an XML file or say have an XML file from within the application. I want that particular XML file to be sent off to the device as is, like any text file, any XML file that I want to ship along with my application. I'll be placing them under the assets folder. Alright, so something that needs to be shipped in along with the application, which is not a part of the resources, so I can ship it using the assets folder. Any person having any doubts here? Till this point of time, we have just covered a few sections here. Not necessarily. The images are a part of resources to me. Images are not a part of assets. It's a part of resources. I'll show you that also. No worries. Alright, so let's move down. Bin. Everybody would be knowing about this bin file which contains the binary. So whenever you have to share your application with your fellow teammates or fellow colleagues, this is the file that is of utmost importance to you. You just share this particular file to your friends, to your colleagues, to all the people who you want to share your work with, and this file will be shared across. In order to use this file, I hope everybody has got an Android phone here. Anyone not having an Android device? And if you have an Android device, can you also just write back on the chat window which device are you having and which OS version, so that I can show you how you have to share your APKs with anyone, like any of your friends. No problems, Praveen. I hope by the end of 6th class, you'll be having it in your hands. All right, Rachit says he has a note. Can everybody hear me up? Anyone who's not able to hear me up? Alright, Naveen, I got it. It might be some audio problem. No worries. Alright, I was telling you about the developer options. Has everybody gone through it? Alright, under that you'll be finding something which says USB debugging. Can everybody find this up? A checkbox for the USB debugging. Can you all just check that checkbox up? So if you want to directly run your applications onto your device, what you need to do is, sure, I'll just move it up. In order to run your devices, or say run your applications onto the devices straight away, that is, you are doing it a run from here, and you have the device plugged in. In order to run that, you need to have your USB debugging mode on. Once you have your USB debugging mode on, and you have all the softwares that are necessary for the application to run, that is like if you are using a Samsung device, you need to have Samsung keys installed. Once you have all that done, you can directly run your applications onto the devices. I'll just attach my S3 here and I'll show you how exactly it looks like. Though I'll also cover up the DDMS perspective in some time now, but for the time being, just see when I click or when I select my application and try to plug my device here. Using the USB debugging mode as on, my application will attach my window, and here I have the emulator. Once my application reaches out for my device, let me do that for you. It will have the device shown as here, as here. It will show you the device as here, whichever device you have attached to the window. Alright, it's some problem here with my device here. I don't know what is the USB port is a problem or something, but it will show you here. The device that you have attached to it can show you here as in terms of the emulator. Though I'll be covering up the DDMS perspective in some time, but for now that is all that you need to know in the DDMS perspective. So you go with the bin folder here, then you go with the libraries. So I have already one dependency here, which is Android support version 4. So I'll tell you, Praveen will be covering that up. Don't worry on that part. It is a very good tool in order to learn about your application's behavior. I'll show you. Then we have the resources files. Resources, as I said, all the application resources. You see 3 drawable folders instead 4 drawable folders here. Can anybody think about what all are these 4 drawable folders? Just a mere thinking that I require from everyone. It's like it is having drawable HDPI, LDPI, MDPI, XHDPI. What is it? Anybody who can think about it? Alright, Rachit, great, great. Anyone else apart from Rachit? Alright, Prabha, very good. Alright. I need everybody to respond back. Ajay, Morgan, Naveen, Prabha, just a thinking part that I'm expecting from you. What you can think about it? Alright. Alright, yes Naveen, that's correct. Not layouts, it's for different, I would just come back. Alright. That's correct, Morgan. Alright, let me tell you about this. I'm having 4 devices. Instead, I'll just consider 2 devices here, right? The first one of mine is a low density pixel independent LDPI device. Then I have another device which is extra high density, XHDPI. And here what I'm having is, I'm having an image or say an icon that is holding some image. I'm having this image here. If I try to use the same image, right? If I try to use the same image in XHDPI, this image will shrink down. Can anybody tell me the reason behind the shrinking of the image here? Can anyone tell me the reason behind the image of shrinking of image? That's correct. That's correct. It is having the pixel content. No, not the resolution of Praveen. It is majorly the pixel per inch. Right? The pixel per inch that I have on an XHDPI devices are a lot condensed. They are a lot more. All right. So that's why the image will shrink down. However, if I use the same image on LDPI, since the pixel per inch are a lot more, or say I would say the lot lesser as compared to XHDPI, so this image will automatically stretch up, right? So that is why we need to have a different set of images for all the set of devices. For extra HDPI, for LDPI, for MDPI and HDPI. The number of images that I'm going to use in my application have to be different for all the device set. As I said, if I'm targeting a large device set, I need to have all the images set across or created for all the device ranges. Alright, so this increases the UI designer's work in our case. It will increase the UI designer's work in order to create all the necessary images for all the different screen sizes screen resolutions and the densities. Alright, then we have the layout folder. Layout folder is a mere layout folder which contains whatever input you want to have. That is, whatever you want to show up on the UI. If you see here, I'm having a relative layout. As I said, this is an XML file, purely XML file. I'm having a relative layout. Under the relative layout, what I'm having is, I'm having a text view. Text view is, you can think of it as a label in other programming languages, right? It is a label which has got a few properties, which says center horizontal true, center vertical true, so that it is shown up at the center of the screen. And it is also holding some text. It is being picked up from a string file. Let me show you what exactly this is. If you go on to the values here, you'll see a file which is called strings.xml, which contains all the application resources that you need in order for your application to run. Like whatever text that you want to show in your application is contained under the strings.xml file. I'll show you what is the use of having this at a common place. Can anybody, alright, I'll just let you all answer me. Can anybody think of why am I having a single resource file for holding all the text that I want in my application? Why is it so? Can anybody think about it? That's correct. One uses this, that is reusability, or say single point access to all the resources. One user is this structure, and Praveen, that is the same. Redundancy, I think Naveen, that's correct. It will be reducing the lines of code. Very good. That's correct. It is easier to manage. But if I, these are all valid points, no doubts about that. But there is something which I'll just tell you in a few moments, which makes this more beautiful, even more beautiful. Picking it up from a single place. I'll just tell you about that. So that is something which I'm hiding from you all right now. Then you have styles.xml, whatever application style that you want is present under the styling folder. Values version 11, version 14. So these are different set of values that are applicable to only Android OSs apart from that is on version 11 and version 14. So if you have to have different sort of styles, so Android versions 11 and 14 give you that particular leverage of using different styles for these versions. These files will be placed under these respective folders. Alright, any person having any doubts till this point of time, you can respond back on the chat window. I hope I'm not going too fast here. I hope I'm not going too fast. Just let me know if I'm going too fast again. Can I have responses back from everyone? Come on, everybody. Can I customize icon in drawable folder? Prabha, can you just tell me about it in a more detailed manner? What do you mean by customizing? Do you want to place new drawables? Do you want to use something else? What exactly in terms of customization? Can I add a clip art of different color? Prabha, what we usually do is, I'll show you how we work on it. Let me go here. How we do it, I'll show you. For example, I have these images. I want to make use of these images in my application, alright? So I just close this up, I just go here, and I'll just paste my images on my XHDPI. Alright, so if you need to make use of images, alright, just make use of these images, whichever you have created, just copy paste them onto your application folder. Alright, Praveen has asked me a question here, how am I going to understand whether my testing device is LDPI, MDPI or HDPI? As I said, Praveen, let me tell you how we do it, how we as developers do it, is that we always make sure that we target the XHDPI or the HDPI. We make sure that we only target the XHDPI and the HDPI. Because nowadays, if you say, look, for all the Android devices, they are all high resolution devices. Nowadays, we always target only the HDPI, XHDPI. But earlier, when Android has just evolved, we always used to target all the devices. And in that case, what we did is we had a single device which was LDPI, for example, any LG device coming at that time. And we had a single device which supported MDPI, and we had a single device in-house which supported HDPI. So that is how we tested the UIs on them. Alright, so that is how we tested it at that time, but nowadays we only target the HDPI and the XHDPI devices. Now let's come back to one of, alright, Rachit says that must be expensive. Rachit, the reason why it has to be expensive is because the target device set is a lot large. The more you'll be targeting, the more resources you have to put in. Because the UI should not look gaudy on the end user. It should not look stretched. It should not look compressed. So that's why we have to take these chances. Right? Now let's take a look at one of the most important files in Android application development, the manifest file. I'll let you all first of all look into it once, and then I'll be asking a few questions to everyone. I'll be also answering them, no doubts about that, but I want everybody to look into it once, and if you have, and then whenever you are done, just write a done onto the chat window so that I can ask you a few very basic questions. I think Praveen, your question, one of your questions that you had asked to me will also get resolved here. Just let me know whenever you are done, as I said, alright? Rachit is done, alright? Good, Rachit. Alright, Praveen is also done. Let me tell you, don't be very quick in reading this up because I'll be asking you a few questions from it. Can I have responses back? Ajay, Morgan, anyone? Not done yet? Alright, Stephen is done. Alright, Morgan is also done. Prabha is also done. Alright, good. First of all, what is this version code? Anyone who can think about it? Who got it done first? Let me just come back. Alright, Praveen says app version. App version in what sense, Praveen? Alright, got it. Alright, let me tell you about this a little more in detail. That's correct. Rachit has got it spot on. It's like, let me tell you, when I created the application first time and I uploaded it onto the Google Play, it was my version 1 of the application. Alright. Now, what I'm doing is I'm making few changes, few enhancements to my project, and I'm uploading a newer version of the APK. So whenever I do such a version schema, I first of all have this version 1 for the very first initial APK of mine, and I'll keep incrementing this version here like this along with the name, so that whenever a new version is installed onto the device, the user knows which version is being installed on the device. Like all the updates that need to be done for that particular APK can be done only on the basis of version check. If your current installed version is lesser than the version that is available onto the Google market. Alright, so that is what is governing this part. This part is being governed like this. Now, question for you. What is 8 here and what is 16 here? Everyone. That's correct. That's correct. Praveen has asked me a difference between a code and the name. Version code is one-to-one integer mapping, Praveen. However, the version name is like a string variable. Alright, good, Rachit. Rachit seems to be the quicker of the lot here. Alright, Rachit says minimum required SDK is 8 and the target version is 16. So that is what it is identifying. So here, alright, Praveen, you were asking me about making changes later. Here you can make the changes. Got it? So that is how you can make the changes after you compile your application. Then comes up the application tag. If you see here, you have an application tag here. Under the application tag, you have a few parameters. It says allow backup of the application true. The icon of the application, label that needs to be shown on the top of the window. I'll just show it to you what exactly is the label being shown here. Sipin, I just wanted to know what is the Min SDK and Max SDK doing here. You see a logo here which says first Android batch, which is taking the application name. Then you have an activity. Let me tell you, if you have 10 activities in your application, that is 10 screens in your application, and you need to use those 10 screens need to be defined under the manifest file. Everybody understands what I'm trying to say here. Can anybody question me why I have to do that? Or can anybody answer me why I have to do that? I'll take it like that. If I'm having 10 screens, I need to identify those 10 screens. That's correct, Rachit. It's in order to allow the machine know how many screens I have in my application. Let me tell you about something more important here. Is it that not automatically done in Eclipse? In that case, Naveen, it's not done. It's like whenever you'll be creating a new activity by yourself, like you create a new Java class, extend the activity, and then try to create it up, it won't do it automatically. But there's a manifest. If you go into the manifest, then you can do it up. If you add it up from the manifest, then you can definitely do it up, but not like that. You go into the application tag here, you can give it an activity name and all kinds of stuff, go on to add here. You can do it from here. It will automatically get added, but not when you're doing it from code, right? Let's go down. Here you see something very important, intent filter. Let me tell you, it's like if I'm having 10 screens in my application, and out of those 10 screens, I want to make my very first screen as the one that needs to be shown on the user, onto the window. We always have PSVM, or the public static void main in Java, which is the application's entry point. All right. Similar to that, we have an entry point in any Android application. But how to identify which particular screen has to be the entry point into the application? That is governed by the intent filters. If you see here, I'm specifying an intent filter to this activity with the intent name and action main, and the category is launcher. So whenever the application launches, the very first activity that is shown to the user whenever the application launches is this particular main activity. So that is what is being done with the help of intent filters. Intent filters are the ones that identify exactly what is going to happen with this activity. Is it going to be a launcher one, or is it not going to be a launcher one? If I do not specify any intent filters with any activity, it is assumed that this activity is not going to be the launcher activity. Any person having any doubts here? Any questions? Any comments? Anyone having any doubts, any questions, any queries in Android manifest.xml? Can I have responses from everyone? That's correct. That's correct. Naveen says, so there are at least one intent filter that we need to have. That's correct. All right. So can anybody also tell me, if I'm having to install an application, all right, I'm having to install an application in any of the devices, I would say any of the devices, which particular file, just by the mere thought, I'm just asking you, which particular file will get read very first time? Is it going to be any source file? Is it going to be any API file, or is it going to be manifest file? Anyone? All right, got it, Prabha? Prabha has answered it. Rachit, the question that I have is, which is the very first file that is being read even before the application gets installed onto the device? That's correct. Everybody is getting it correct. No problems. All right. Then you have the ProGuard properties. Like if you want to obfuscate the code here, you can use ProGuard for it. Then you have the project properties, which tells you what exactly is the project configuration that you're trying to have. So the target is Android API 17, which is being shown in the project properties. Rachit, I hope you have got the answer to it. What is the file that is very first read from the application, even before the installation? That's correct. That's correct, Rachit. It is the manifest file. All right. So we have walked through all the complete structure here, all right, of how an activity looks like, how you have to create a new Android application package, how you have to create a new Android activity, which is just holding a mere text hello world, all right. So what I'll do here is I'll take a 5 minutes break session here. We'll all will take a 5 minutes break here and have some water, and then we'll again join back in the class, right? So here we have the 5 minutes break here for everyone, right? Take your 5 minutes break and do come back after 5 minutes, all right? Alright guys, I'm back here. I hope everybody is back as well. Can you all just respond back onto the chat window? Alright. Alright, so we have covered all the project properties, all the folders that are there in our Android application project creation. Now let's walk through the presentation once, and we'll cover other few aspects like the DDMS view, what exactly is the Android activity lifecycle and all. So we'll cover them up one by one. Let's first of all talk about the DDMS perspective. Alright. So the DDMS perspective is the Dalvik Debug Monitor Server. Alright. So whenever you create your Android applications, Android by default ships in with a debugging tool which is called the Dalvik Debug Monitor Server. It provides you various features like port forwarding services, the screen captures onto the device, the thread information, the heap information, and also the logcat. Let me show you that. So let's run this activity of mine is in view here. If you see here, I have a DDMS perspective here. Can everybody check on their respective machines? Do you all have access to the DDMS perspective here? Everyone. Can everybody check this up? Praveen says he does not have it up. Praveen, can you just click on this particular window if you see? Alright, click here and go on to other, and here you will be finding a DDMS perspective. Just try this once. Everyone, just let me know if you have access to the DDMS perspective or not. Alright, so everybody has seen that. Everybody has access to the DDMS perspective. Let me tell you about DDMS then. So the DDMS perspective is something which monitors your device in the real time. If you see, I have an emulator up here, right? So it shows me the device that is up and working, and it also shows me, the logcat also shows me, alright, sure, Stephen, that is what my point was. I just wanted to know from everyone, am I not going too fast? Alright. Just let me know whenever you are comfortable so that we can start it all again. Stephen, I hope now we can start it all again. The DDMS perspective. Let me know, Stephen, I'm waiting for your response. Alright, Ajay, Morgan, Naveen, Prabha, Praveen, everyone. Rachet, Stephen, have you all seen the DDMS perspective now onto your respective machines? Just let me know onto the chat window. Alright, Morgan cannot find it. Morgan, can you just do a small exercise here? Just click on this icon that you're seeing here. Can you see this icon that I'm having my cursor on? Just click here, go on to other, click on other, and there you'll be finding a DDMS perspective, and just add this up onto the window. Just try this exercise and let me know. Alright, so whenever I have access to the DDMS perspective, what I have is I have access to a variety of features. If you see screen capture, so whatever is there running on my window, I can also save a copy of it. It's like taking a screenshot of the emulator. Then I have the various hierarchy. So view hierarchy is something, for example, if I'm having multiple views in my activity, I can see the progress of views from this view hierarchy, right? It will show me all the screen snapshots, what all is the layout of the file, what all is the, if you see here, can you see this up? The layout of the file, what exactly it is containing, so that is all shown to me by this hierarchy viewer. Then if I go on here, you see all the threads. If I'm having a multi-threaded application, so I can have all the threads up and working here. Since I'm presently not having a multi-threaded application, it is showing nothing here. Allocation tracker tracks all the applications, resources, allocation and deallocation status. That is how many objects are allocated, how many objects are having what network capability, what allocation status. All right, say what is the I would say size of any object and something like that. Then we have the network statistics. Like suppose I'm doing a client-server interaction. In client-server interaction, I need to see what all is the data sent over the wire, what all is the data coming over the wire. So that is all I can do with the help of network statistics. What is the lag, what is the delay, and what is the time span that it is taking in order to get all the queries returned and all. Then I have the file explorer inside this. So as I'm using an emulator, all right, my emulator has got a file system of its own. So that particular file system of its own is being shown here inside this particular folder. And I'll just show you my application folder as well. If you see here, I have a data folder. Can you all just respond back? And let me just, Stephen, I hope I'm not going too fast now. Can you respond back, Stephen, if I'm not going too fast? All right. So here I have a data folder. If I open this data folder, I have to find another data folder under it. So if I open this data folder as well, and just remember the package name. Can anybody recall the package name here? Can anybody recall the package name? It is com.example.firstandroid batch, and here you see all the cache, all the lib files of my particular thing. My particular application is having all these controls here. So this is the application folder that I was talking about. And since I'm working on an emulator, I'm the root user of the emulator. So that's why I'm having access to everything here. Right? Any person having any questions here? Can I have responses from everyone? Only a few people are responding up. Let's go there onto the logcat now. Let's talk about the logcat. Logging of the device. So for example, if I want to see where am I exactly on any particular interface, I say just do a logging. I say log .i, which is for the info part, right? Here I give it a tag. So the tag has to be my main activity, because this is the activity I'm calling the log from. Message could be, say I am inside on create. That's correct, Rachit. We can put anything in tag, but usually what the programming paradigms follow is that whichever activity you are logging, you give it an activity name. Right, so let's run this up and see what my DDMS perspective contains now. No, it's not when debug mode is set to be true. The logging will happen all the time. Like if you are running it onto the device also, the logging will happen. Naveen. That's correct. If you talk about this particular file, I'll just show you. If you talk about this particular file, build config, then that is true. It will be always doing the logging in this mode only, but it's not something that only if you are debugging your application, the logs will be active. No, it won't happen onto the device, Praveen, when you have the device attached to the screen, right? Then you will have the logging done here. All right, so here I go. So I have installed my application is up and running. Now I have to find the log here. So I go on to info part and find out my log. All right, what? It's not showing any logs here. Or are the logs not refreshing up? Let's do it again. Let's close this up and do it again. All right. The activity just could not get again up. Let's do home here. On the activity, now it should launch the newer version of it. Again, just force stop this one. Now it should run fine. It's just that I had to kill the process because it was not taking up the new process in. It's going to the info part now. Let's find our log here. All right, Rashid says he saw it. I think I just skipped it up somehow. That's correct. Let me just go back here. And you can see that log. All right, it says in the main activity, it shows the tag and it shows you I am inside on create. So whenever you have to say publish some messages or just check whether something was working, something was not working, you can do the logging of those events. So these are all the system-wide logs. If you want, you can also save them as a text file. If you see here, you can always save them as a text file to your machine in order to see all the logs. All right. So that is how you can do all the debugging. Like anything that you want to know about the application, you can do it from here. Then comes the emulator controls. Praveen is not able to see the Logcat tab. In order to do that, Praveen, what you can do is first go on to window, go on to show view, all right, and then either you can just first of all try resetting the perspective. First try resetting the perspective. If that doesn't work, go on to show view, and here you can find out the Logcat view. All right, so here you can find it from here. Got it? All right. Then let's talk about something else. On the emulator, I can do n number of actions. Let's do something else. So I give it my number and I click on call. What do you see here? Can everybody see this up? I can do all these kinds of actions. That's correct. I can do all these kinds of actions from my emulator. All right, do a call or say send a message. I say if I want to send a message, I just send a message and it will show up onto the window. I'll just show you. And you can see that. So these kind of mechanisms are also available for me onto the emulators part, because emulator is something which emulates the actual device. All right. So that is what is being shown here. Again, if I want to have the location set, so I can give it a longitude, latitude, and say send. So it will set up my current device's locations to those particular longitude and latitudes. Console is the very normal console that you see. It shows all the consoling features that you do. Can we reply from device? Reply in what terms, Rachit? No, that is not a possibility, because it won't actually take the contact number, find out the network provider. It is not like that. All right, you cannot reply from a device, from an emulator. All right. So this is what we call the Dalvik Debug Monitor Server. So I have shown you all the necessary advantages that you can have with help of this DDMS perspective, right? So this is the DDMS perspective that you see. If you want to have any other information about the device, this is the only place that will help you out. Let me show you another example. If I just do something here, suppose my main activity, all right, I'll just show you a crash and I'll just do a debugging for you for crash, and I'll just show you how you can monitor the logs as well. All right, I'll just show you an example of that. Emulator, till now we have been working on the emulator, but have we created one? Let's create a new emulator. How are we going to create a new emulator? Just let me know whether everybody can see this icon here. Can everybody see this icon? The Android Virtual Device Manager. So everybody has to do a small exercise with me here, right on their machines. Click on this window. Everyone, do a small exercise. Whenever you are done, just let me know. Here you go and click on new. You might be having this blank, right? You might be having this space as blank, right? Is everybody doing this exercise here? This is a very small exercise that everybody has to take care of. ABD name that you want to give to your Android ABD. So if you are trying to call LG Nexus 7, if you're trying to replicate LG Nexus 7, you can use here, or say Nexus 7, just Nexus 7. Stephen, what is it? Have you not started it yet? Let's wait for Stephen to do his work and then we'll start up. No, Stephen, you can take your time. No problems about that. Just let us know whenever you are done. All right, so that we can be on the same page. Morgan, are you able to do this? Prabha, everyone, come on, respond back. All right, now let's do something. Stephen, I hope you're done. All right, let's do here a Nexus 7, whichever device you want to replicate, choose that device, choose a target, that is which OS version should be running on the device. All right, so you can choose the OS version which you want to be running on the device. Then select the CPU, whether you want an ARM CPU working or you want an MIPS CPU working. So I always work with ARM CPU, all right. Then I go on here, keyboard, hardware keyboard present, that is you can type from your keyboard is something that is known here. Display a scan with the hardware controls, if you want to display a scan, you can check this one up. Front camera, if you want to have the front camera emulated with the webcam, you can choose this option. RAM, heap size, you can always do increase and decrease of this RAM and heap size. Internal memory, whatever you want to increase, whatever you want to decrease, you can size in. Then you see SD card option. So if you want to give it an SD card, that is external SD card. Heap size is something, Rachit, that is allocated to the application, right? Like whenever you up your emulator, there's a particular area that is allocated to every single application. So that heap area is actually defined by the memory of the heap. A device has got a certain extent of heap area that it can allocate to the applications. So that is what we specify here. The heap size is something that we are specifying here. It's like the maximum number of area that you can allocate or say you can have the applications allocate. Alright, once you're done, just click on OK. Once you click on OK, it will add up an emulator here. Just do this exercise because it will take some time. So I'm not doing it on my machine. I'm not clicking OK on my machine here. Just please do this small exercise and let me know whether a device is added up onto the left or not. Alright, Praveen says the device is added, but I can see only one option in target while adding device, because the reason why you would have got only one option, Praveen, is because you would have got downloaded only one SDK, that is 4.2. Alright, so let me show you how you are going to tackle that up. If you have to download the previous versions, go on to this particular window which says Android SDK Manager, click on it. Once you click on it, you see what all I have installed. It's shown as installed, but you can also select the obsolete check here. Can you see this up, Praveen? check on the obsolete window and it will also show you the older versions. Alright, so that is how you can do it up. Select onto the obsolete and just checkbox, outer checkbox you have to select and install all those packages up. I hope this is clear to everyone. Any person having any doubts here? What you can also do is, if you want to have anyone created from the very set configurations, like a Nexus, you want to replicate only a Nexus, just click on create AVD in the device definitions and it will create an exact replica of the Galaxy Nexus that you want to create. Alright, so that is what you can do it in this case. Alright. Once you have it up and running, just go on here, click on start and your emulator will start up onto the window. Sure, I'll do that for you again, Praveen. Here you open up the SDK manager, click on the obsolete packages, select whichever API package you want to install and click on installation of all these packages. Alright, the replica, I'll show you. It's like if you want to have the exact device being replicated, just go on to the tab of device definitions, select on the device and click on create AVD, which will create you an exact replica of the Galaxy Nexus, Nexus S, Nexus 1 or any other device that you feel like. Alright. So what is an emulator? Emulator is something that emulates the actual device. Why should I use it? I should use emulators whenever I have to do some testing onto my device. That's correct, that's correct. These are the predefined devices in the system. Can I run Eclipse applications on my device? I have already told you how you can do that up. Alright. Now let's talk about an activity life cycle. Alright. Like every human being has a life cycle, and activity too has a life cycle. So it is very important to understand what all are the phases of the activity life cycle in order to make the best use of activity life cycle. So whenever you create an activity, let me show you here. There are various callbacks inside the activity. If you would have seen, we have only worked with one callback which says on create. Everybody agrees with me here? We have only worked with one callback which says on create. Now let's see or take a look at all of the callbacks. Whenever the activity gets launched, it calls the on create, which ultimately calls the on start method. And I'll give you a few scenarios. All right, I'll give you a few scenarios in what state an activity goes into what condition. We'll take it like that. All right. Whenever the activity is launched for the very first time, it calls the on create, calls the on start, calls the on resume, and then starts running onto the view. That is, it is being shown to the user, so it is said to be in the running state. Now let's assume that I'm using my application, and in the meanwhile I get a call. I get a call from a friend of mine, right? So my activity moves off from the screen. If you would have seen, activity is not visible at that point of time whenever you are taking the call. Everybody agrees, disagrees here? Alright, so activity is not shown here. Now what happens in this case is, I do not know, as a system does not know how long the activity or say the call will go on. So activity first of all here moves into the on pause state. First of all moves into the on pause state and then moves into the on stop. So it stops the activity, because if there is some user intensive operation that is being held at or onto the activity, it is always advisable that I should stop the activity because I'm not having to do that work because I'm still in a call. Very simple as that. So my activity calls the on stop at this point of time. But as soon as the user ends the call, what should happen? My activity should again come into the foreground. In this case, what happens is activity goes into the on stop. Once the user finishes the call, it calls the on restart. On restart is getting called, and then it calls the on start again, then the on resume, and the activity starts running again. So this is one of the examples. Now let's take another example what I have is, I have an activity of mine. My activity has got a pop-up in front of the activity. Can anybody tell me, whenever I have a pop-up or a dialog box in front of the activity, is my activity still visible to me or not? Anyone? It is visible, but it is not in the foreground. That's what I'll tell you, Naveen. I'll tell you what exactly how the state preservance has to work. I'll tell you about that. I'll tell you about that. That's correct. Visible but not accessible. So in this case, what happens is, back onto the chat window. Can everyone hear me up now? I just don't know what the problem here is. Either the GoToWebinar is creating a problem here, or either my network connection is creating problems for me. It's just a pure nuisance here. I just don't know what exactly is the problem. I hope everybody can hear me up now. All right. Can anybody recall where I left off? It's just that having a complete problem here with my internet. All right, Stephen, can you just let me know where all right, I was telling you about the pop-up, all right? So it's like whenever a pop-up is visible in front of the screen, the activity will first go into the on pause mode, all right? So it goes into the on pause and the activity dialog is shown on top of the activity. Now when a user takes any action onto it, say he closes the dialog or he just dismisses the dialog by pressing the hardware back button, in that case, what happens is the activity goes into the resume and starts running again. So I have told you two significances. One is the activity getting restarted and then the activity getting resumed. So there are two instances of it. One, when the call comes up, it restarts. One, when the dialog is dismissed, it resumes. I hope these two significances are clear to everyone. Two states of an activity which it might enter into should be clear to everyone. Now let's take another example. I have the activity up and running and I just press the hardware back button. Whenever I press a hardware back button onto the activity, what happens? Can anybody just respond back onto the chat window? What happens whenever I just press the back button of these onto the activity, onto the screen? Does it finish off? That's correct. It finishes off. I would say it finishes off. That is, it goes out from the view. In that case, what happens is, first the on pause gets called, then the on stop gets called, then the on destroy gets called, because the activity, when it is not visible into the view, why should I be loading it up? Why should I be having it active? So I just destroy the activity, or say the Android framework just destroys this activity and shuts down the activity. Now let's take another scenario. Very critical one, which I have never faced in my 4 years of application development. I have my activity up and running. Somehow I get a call. I go into the pause state, I go into the on stop state. Now my battery is draining up. My battery goes into complete drain while I am in the call. What should the system do in this case? Anyone? That's correct. It won't alert me, Rachit. Alertion is a broadcast receiver. If say I'm having my battery reaching below a threshold value, that is a broadcast receiver that alerts me up. But when it is not such a scenario, it will just destroy it by its own and switch off the complete phone. Everybody agrees? Disagrees here? Alright, Rachit, that is the case here. It's like that's correct. To release the memory, in order to have the call last longer period of time, I have to release the memory. So that is how it behaves. That is something which I haven't come across till my programming career till now. But I hope everyone will try it up and they might come across this situation. Alright, so these are the various live callbacks of the activity. So whichever activity whichever state activity enters into has got a significance, and that significance is something that we make use of. Alright, let me tell you one more thing. Alright, Praveen, yes, go ahead with your query here. I'll wait for Praveen to respond back, and then I'll give you another query, another example here. Alright, Naveen was asking me, but when you press hardware back button, you say it gets destroyed. That's correct, Praveen. Whenever we press the hardware back button, it gets destroyed if we are working on a single activity. Just remember, if we are working on the single activity. No, it won't. It won't. In that case, it won't maintain the state of the application. Since the activity is already down, alright, it won't maintain any state here. Right? Now, let's go back to Naveen's query here. Naveen, you were asking me about the object preservance, or say the state preservance of the activity. Right? Now let me tell you another example. Whenever you change the orientation of the device, does anybody know that whenever you change the orientation of the device, your activity actually redraws itself? It gets into the restart mode. The very first mode that I've talked about when we get a call. How many of you know about it? It goes into a restart mode, or say it redraws itself up. You see here, I have this activity up and running. If I change the orientation, it redraws itself, or it recreates itself. If you see, anybody asked me about this here, I think, saved instance state. How many of you asked me about this? I think someone asked me about this. So whatever we do is, suppose we have 10 UI elements. First of all, I'll call a method which says on saved instance state. Alright, so here this particular method will ask me to save all the objects inside this bundle. And then I have to call again one more method which says restore saved instances. Or let me just check here, what is the other method here? Alright, it says one is the saved instance state, on saved instance state. Alright, got it. It's like whenever you say on saved instance state, you'll be using all the saved, in order to use all the saving of the mechanism. Like suppose you have 10 views in your application, you want to save all the 10 views whenever the activity gets restarted. So what you'll do is you'll call the on saved instance state, get all the objects and store them as a bundle. I'll show you, like suppose if there is a spinner. You want to have the values inside the spinner. So you say spin, for example, I'll just show you like this. We'll cover an example for this. You get the values from the spinner and save it as an object to a bundle. inside the bundle. Once you save it up, what happens is whenever your activity gets restarted, it calls the onCreate again. If you see here, it calls the onCreate again, or say the onStart again. It calls the onStart again. Now if you call the onStart again, what you can do is, I just don't know. Alright, am I working inside the onCreate? No, I'm not. Alright, so here you see, I have the onStart. In this onStart, what you'll be doing is you'll be getting this out state handled inside your application so that you can preserve all the object states. So that is how we majorly work with object persistence or saving the state of the objects. Alright, Naveen, I think this was your question here. So that is how we make use of object state preservance. Alright, so this bundle saved instance state gives me the bundle that was saved up by my onSaved instance, and I can use this bundle again in the onCreate, right? That is how it works. Any person having any doubts in understanding the saved instance state? What all are the activity life callbacks? What all are the restarts, resume methods that you come across in any of the Android activity lifecycle? If there is any doubt, you can respond back onto the chat window. I need responses from everyone. Anyone having any doubts? Let's move ahead then. All right, I think, okay. Morgan, any doubts? I know this might be a little tougher for you to understand, but any doubts still? If you have, you can respond back onto the chat window. All right, let me also ask here. All right, Stephen, any doubts? Because I want everybody to be interactive here. Let's move ahead now. These are the various callbacks. So created, onCreate, started, visible, and you can see that pause is partially visible. And you can see resumed, it is again visible on the top. So these are the various callbacks. Now let's talk about something which we call as view groups and views. Let me show you an example here. Instead, I'll be asking you, giving you few examples. This is the screen that I have. All right. In this screen, I have something which is called a container. Under the container, I have one view, I have another view, and I have another view. Then I have another container here, which holds just two views, one and two. Can anybody tell me what exactly is this container is? Is it a view group or is it a view? Let me tell you, grouping of views together is called something which is a view group. So a control that has the property of grouping views together is called a view group. And if there is any single standalone component, it is called a view. If you see here, a view group can hold number of views and it can also hold view groups. This is in respect to the layout file. Let me tell you, this is in respect to the layout file. Let me close this up. This is with respect to the layout. So it's like very much like whenever you'll be creating a layout, you'll be working with a view group and a view. Can I have responses from everyone? What is the difference between a view group and a view? Now I have given you an example here. I need the difference from every single candidate here. What is the difference between a view group and a view? Right, Rachit says view group is a group of views. That's correct, Rachit. Anybody else? Groups can have multiple views. That's right. I think view groups can also have multiple view groups, Naveen. Is that correct? what I'm just saying here is a view group can have multiple view groups as well. But a view cannot have any view under it, first thing. And similarly, a view is a standalone component. It's like having its own individual identity, right? All right, so that is the difference between a view group and a view. The manifest file. So the manifest file is the one that presents essential information about the application to the Android system. The information that the system must have before it can run any of the application's code. I had told you about this. We have already discussed about the I've also told you about the main and the launcher activity here. So the main activity for your app must be declared in the manifest with these parameters. It's like whenever you have to have the launcher. I hope everybody is with me here. Few people are saying that they have lost me, Praveen. When was I lost here? Because now it is giving me headache here, this internet connection of mine. If it's getting lost again and again, now I just all right. So here I say the various activity launchers, you have to define them with the various intent filters. So what is Android manifest.xml? Can anybody tell me about this? Now this is a question for you. Can anybody, all right, I'll take it like that. Can anybody think of it as a metadata file? Can I say call it a metadata? Can I have responses if I can call this file as a metadata file? It contains data about data. So there is like data about the application data. It contains all that, right? So that is what I have in terms of a manifest file. So the source file contains all the Java files. That's correct. That's correct, Naveen. And what do we put resources under the resources directory? We put all the images, we put all the layouts, we put all the string files inside our resources files. Now let's talk about values. I had, if you all remember, I had stopped telling you something about values. When I was talking about string files, I told you that there is a common place that we keep all these string files. And it is not just for the sake of convenience of having to have a single point of reference. There's some other benefit to it. So Android will run on many devices and in many regions. Everybody knows about it, right? But whenever an application runs in a locale for which you have not provided locale specific text, Android will load the values from the resources normal strings. It's like, let me tell you about this. Whenever you try to create your application might be running on multiple locales. Like some locales might be supporting French if your application is downloaded in France. Similarly, some might be containing Spanish if it is downloaded in Spain. All right. But if I'm having to cater to all the Spanish language or the French language, I need to provide locale specific text for those particular languages. All right. So that is what I am going to show you here. If I just cover an example here. So here I'm going to provide my application with multilingual support for German, all right, or what we call the Deutsch language. I go under the resources file, all right, and I go under values, or here I just copy, I just go to new, I go on to new folder, I call this folder as values, and I proceed or say succeed this with a hyphen and an identifier, hyphen comma de. I say hyphen de, right? And I just copy the strings.xml file to my values hyphen de and I make a few changes. I just do a gr underscore in front of all the strings, just to signify that whatever I'm picking up from the file system is being picked up from the German locale. And I go here, change my emulator settings here, and I just change it to work on a German locale. In order to do that, what I need to do is I just need to go into the locale, custom locale, look out for a German locale. Let me tell you the identifier that I have used here. Everybody see the identifier that I have used here, right? It's DE, all right? So if you see here, I'll just show you how you can identify what exactly is the identifier for what language. Can you see that? The identifier for German language. Can everybody see this up? I hope everybody is with me here. All right. When I click here, I select German as the locale here. Now everything that my application is holding, all right, will change into German. And you can see that. You can see that the crashes are also reported in German now. All right. So if you see here, I have my application running on a German locale. Now I have to run on a German locale. Now if I try to run my application onto this device, it will pick up all the text that is locale specific. So all my strings files will now contain gr_ as a first word and then the language. Since I do not know what hello world means in German, I have just preceded everything with gr_. Even the settings would say gr_settings. Now everybody understands why we have a single point reference for string files in my application. Any person having any doubts in understanding how you can make use of the different locales inside your application? It's not specific that you only do it for German. You can do it for French, you can do it for n number of languages that are supported. Just make sure if there is any language that is not provided a locale specific text, it will load the default English values. Everybody understands what I'm trying to say here? So this in a way widens the horizon. I can make use of all the languages inside a single APK file. That's correct. That's correct, Praveen. I can have a single APK cater to all the different locales that I want to deploy my application on. It will just check the locale whenever it's getting installed and load the locale specific text automatically. But here comes one more condition. Sometimes I might also need that the images that I'm using in my application should also contain the same text. Sometimes what happens is you have an image which says save, right? And it has got an icon on top and also some text at the bottom for the save button. Everybody agrees with me or not? It's like an icon on the top and then a text at the bottom, which defines, for example, the behavior of the code of the button. In that case, you can also make use of the drawables or the images for locale specific. Can you see this up? The Spanish, Espanol, or the Deutsch one. Just create a new drawable folder, precede it with -de -hdpi, put all your locale specific text in there, and then it will automatically load up all the values from there. Any person having any doubts in understanding the multilingual support that we have for Android applications, how it is being handled by the framework is very important. You cannot change the folder name. Just remember, folder names have to be exactly the same because this is called the folder level mapping. Everybody agrees here? Any person having any doubts? Naveen, Morgan, Ajay, Prabha, anyone having any sort of questions here? What I'm saying is that the folder naming convention has to be followed in the same manner that is being shown here. If you try to make changes to the folder naming convention, it will not recognize them. Got it? All right, let's go down here. Rachit, I haven't got any response from you. All right. Let's talk about drawables. Drawables, as I said, are mere images that you're using in your application. So a drawable is a general abstraction for something that can be drawn. It is unlike a view. A drawable does not have any facility to receive events. Let me tell you about this. if you need to have event handling onto the drawable, you have to first of all place it in a control that has that behavior. A drawable by itself does not have the clickability behavior or any interactive behavior with the user. I'll just show you an example for that. Do not worry on that aspect. We'll cover that up. Alright, so here we'll be talking about listeners. So before I talk about listeners, let's take another 5 minutes break here. Alright, because I need to have some water here. I'll take another 5 minutes break here, and then when we come back, we'll be talking about listeners. We'll cover a small example wherein we'll be covering how we click using the buttons and how we make some changes into the application code. So it is going to be a complete application creation that we'll be doing after a break of 5 minutes. Alright, I hope everybody is fine with a break of 5 minutes here. I think everybody else also needs it, right? Alright, so here we'll go for a 5 minutes break, and then we'll come back again and cover a listener concept, because after this concept you'll be able to do a very basic activity of yourself by yourself. Alright, so that is what my motive is. I'll also give you an assignment today, alright, on the listeners. So just make sure that you have complete understanding onto the listeners when we come back after a break of 5 minutes. Alright, just take a little nap if you feel like, take a power nap, and then we'll be starting with the listeners. Alright, so I'm back here. I hope everybody is here with me. Can I have responses back onto the chat window if everybody is here with me? Let's wait for everybody to respond back so that I can just assume that everybody is coming back here. All right. So I was taking. All right. All right. No problem, Stephen. I'll just be really slow here. No problems. It's good that you mentioned this from the very beginning. Good. All right. So I hope everybody is here with me. Let's talk about the listeners part. All right. So what are the types of event listeners that we have in Android applications? We have the on-click listener. We have the on-long-click listener. We have the on-key listener, and then we have the on-touch listener. So here I'll be covering two listeners, the one on top, on-click, on-long-click. On-key and on-touch key listeners, or say on-key and on-touch listeners are there for an assignment for everyone. You all have to practice the on-key and on-touch listeners by yourself. All right, I'll just give you a brief insight into both these listeners, but you have to practice it by yourself. Let's take a look at on-click listener. If you all remember, here I had placed 3 images. Let's first of all change back the locale because we are not working in German locale now. All right, let's move down. Seems to be hung up here. All right, Naveen says, I get the message failed to load properties file for project. What is that, Naveen? Can you just let me know about it? Where are you finding this exact problem? Are you trying to import some code? Is that so? In error perspective, let me just check here. You are talking about DDMS in this error mode, right? Are you talking about this? Okay, then. Got it, got it, got it. In the problems, you might be finding this up, right? Naveen, just let me know. Are you creating a new project or are you actually opening up a project by yourself? Are you creating a new project? Is something that I want to know. All right, you're creating a new project. In that case, you are getting failed to load properties file. This is strange because, all right, I'll just allow you to speak up. Yes, Naveen, you can speak now.
Yeah, I just created a project and
okay.
when I look into the error log window, it gives me an error message saying that failed to load properties file for the project. And when I look into how many properties files this application has, it has one property file which is located in the root of the project. Name of that property file is project.properties. So it looks like that this property file is not loaded for some reason.
Can you just repeat this step with me here? I'm just doing it for you. I go on to file. Is this the same step that you carried out? I go on to new. I go on to Android application project, right? Give it a test name. I just click on next. I click on next. I click on next, and I click on finish.
I created a blank activity true.
Correct, correct, correct. And now it has got loaded.
It got loaded. There is a property file in the application. Can you scroll to the
That's correct.
file?
This is the file that it has. This is the file.
It looks like that
Right.
this property is it's not taking this particular property file. So
can you just do one favor here? Can you just do it? Do this complete process again, because what I see is that it might have not created the complete project in its entirety. Are you getting my point?
But I didn't
Somehow
get any error message. Maybe we can take this separately.
I think that's correct. That's correct. That's correct. We can take it otherwise. But in the meanwhile, if you want to give it a try, just try it up by creating another one. Right? Just close the project once and try it by creating another one.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Naveen. All right. All right. So here we were talking about, if you see here in my application, I have placed a few resources in the drawable HTTPI. image1, image2, right? Now I'll make sure that I have to place a few buttons inside my activity. So here I just remove this up from here. All right, what is it? All right, it's for some other activity. All right, here I'll just remove this up from here. Activity main I'll open up. I'll remove this text view from here. Go on to the graphical representation here. Okay, let's copy this up. Let's do a paste here and call these strings with. It's just that I think I gave it only for the German locale, so let's make the changes here. Now this is the normal structure that I have. All right. Now I go here onto the activity main.xml, and what am I going to do is I'm going to drag and drop a few buttons. I say button 1, button 2, button 3. Let's make the changes to the naming convention here. I say button 1, or I say button image 1. I similarly do a button image 2. Can anybody tell me why am I getting these warnings? I'll show you. It's like it says as a warning, it says hard-coded string. That's correct. Should use @string resource. So all my strings should come from string file. I hope everybody can do it by themselves, or should I? All right, I'll just cover an example how you can do it up. Here I say button 1. I create a button 2. I create a button 3. Give it a text. I call it image 1, image 2, call it image 3. It's the button text that I'm using, right? I go on to strings or say activity main, and I say @string / button 2, @strings button 3, and similarly I do it for button 1. Once I do a Control-Shift-S, all right, I think it's taking some time to do a refresh. Let me just do a clean here. I think the error has resolved. It's just that the UI is not refreshing it up. All right, so we have the error resolved using the string variables, or say the warning resolved. Now let's go on to, all right, Rachit, a cleaning does all the say object references get recorded again. The r.java file gets created again. So that is what the clean does. Now let's create object references. I say private button. So here I have to create the object references of the buttons. I say button 1. I do a button 2. And I do a button 3. I'll just show you the difference how we do it, alright? How we do it differently in Android. I say button 1 equal to, I have to do a typecasting here. I have a question coming up for all of you. I have a question coming up for all of you. Just remember. I say button 2. I say button 3. Can anybody tell me why am I doing a typecasting here to button objects? Anyone? Praveen, I hope you are attentive here. Why am I doing a typecasting here? It gets done faster. What is that? Rachit, didn't get your answer here. That's correct. Morgan has got it correct. Here, see, I tell, no, it's not like that. Rachit, it's not like something that saves time here. If you see, my find view by ID method returns me what? Can anybody tell me what it returns to me? You have the method open up. It returns to me a view. View is what? View is a parent class of all the widgets that I have in Android. Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm casting my parent to a child view which is of the type button. Everybody got my point here? Why am I doing the type casting? Alright, so here I say, now I go on to the activity main.xml file, and what am I going to add is, I'm going to add up an image view. I go on to images and media, and I go on and add up an image view here. It is asking me for an icon, so I give it an icon here, and I also expand this up so that it looks a little good. Now let's see something. So if I want to have some changes onto the icon, whenever I click on the button, I'll do a button click listener. So I say button1 dot set on click listener. I give it a new object reference of on click listener. Once I do that, I have to terminate the colon it with a semicolon, and I have to do the necessary imports. Import, let me tell you, whenever you'll be importing it up, it has to be android.view.view import. Once I do the import, I have to provide my implementation inside the onClick method. So let's provide the implementation. So I have to have changes to the image view, right? So I say create another object reference, call it image view, and I say image to show. Again, same way I have to do it with the button. Image to show equal to, which I am going to typecast with. Anyone? What is going to be the typecasting factor here? Can we also separate listener classes? I'll tell you about that, Naveen. I'll tell you about an implementation of an interface. That's correct, Praveen. Here I go it with an image view. I'll just tell you that. Here I say r.id. So what am I going to do is I'm going to do a change to the image view. Why do we put braces at the front? Where are you talking about? This one, the button casting, Rachit? That is always a normal phenomena. Whenever we do a typecasting, Rachit, we always do it with the help of a parenthesis. In Java, whenever we have to do our typecasting, we do it with the help of a parenthesis. Here I say, now it is presently showing me what? It is presently showing me image.jpg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this on the click of the button. And I have to refer to r.troible dot image1. I'll just change the image at the same position on the click of the button. Let me do this up. So here if I click on image 1, this is my button listener. It will change the image, right? Let me change here. Let me just check here. Am I using the same image here? Let me see here. What image am I using here? I'm using the image here and I'm changing it with image 1. Let me just see. Image to show dot set background resource. Alright, I am doing something wrong here. I have to remove this source property from here because it is already having image as a background. So that's why it is just showing, it will just set up that as a background to the image. I'll just show you. I'll just tell you what exactly I mean by this. It is like what I'm doing presently is I'm having a blank image. I'm having a blank image view, and on click of the button I'm filling this up with an image. However, last time what I was doing was I already have an image in place and I was just changing the background of that image. So since the background was getting changed, it was not showing up anything. Any changes were not shown up. So if I click on image 1, it will show up an image. Now let's do something here. Alright, Praveen says, does that mean that code in Java is not having priority on layout file? It is having a priority, Praveen, but the only thing was I was having this as a source. Can you see this up? However, I'm just setting a property here inside my main activity as background. So the property mismatch was there. It was not something that the Java code has that does not have a precedence. It is just that the property was not in the right manner. I hope now it is clear to everyone what exactly was the problem here. Any doubts, any queries here? Praveen, any questions here? So what if I want to change any image? In that case, Praveen, what you need to do is, instead of using the set background resource, you say image to show, or instead, I'll just do it like this. In the layout file, instead of having the property as source, you say this property as background. Simple as that. Alright, once you have this property as background here, it will work. Let me show you by running this up. Alright. If I click on image 1, now this will all work fine. It was just that there was a property mismatch that was done here. Alright. Now it will work fine. Now just see here, if you go on to main activity, if I have 3 buttons, at present 3 buttons, so I can do the necessary association of the on-click listener with 3 buttons. But what if I have 20 buttons in my activity? Should I be creating an inline on-click listener for all the 20 buttons? Is that a better approach? Or should I just handle them at a single place? Everyone. It's like, should I be handling them from a single place, or should I have all the 20 inline on-click listeners? Which is a better approach? It says single place, so let's do it something like this. That's correct, Naveen. We have to implement a listener for it. Here I say it implements, this particular class of mine implements on-click listener. Once I implement, I have to also add the unimplemented methods. So on the unimplemented methods, I have to make sure that I work on the on-click listener. Let's do something here. Say int id equal to whichever button got clicked, give me the ID of the button. Let's do a switch case now. Key has to be whichever button got clicked, the ID. What is the range of permissible values? I want to know from you. What is the range of permissible values of the ID? Everyone, and specifically Naveen. No, Prabha, it's like I'm handling 3, that's correct. But what is the conditions that I'm handling 3? Anyone? I think that is fairly easy for everyone to gauge here. Can you see something like this? If you see, I'm finding this view by this ID. So if I'm mapping a ID here, I should map the same ID. Everybody agrees here, disagrees here. Alright? So here I say, copy this up. Very simple. Here I do a button 2, here I do a button 3. But I haven't done one thing here. I haven't associated my buttons to my click listener. Let's do that as well. I say set on click listener to my this. That's correct. That's correct, Naveen. Very good. Naveen, I must tell you, you are having some advantage over me now. Alright, so here I say button 2 and button 1. Just set this up and this will get done with help of my button click listener. Just copy this piece of code and change the values of the image on the click of the buttons. On button 1, I need to show image. On button 2, I need to show image 1. On button 3, I need to show image 2. Just swapping of the images. Once I'm done, I'll just do a run. So when I click on image 1, it will show me this image. If I click on image 2, it will show me this image. If I click on image 3, it will show me this image. So I can just keep along playing with the image views like this on click of the buttons. I hope the listener implementation is clear to everyone. I say the interface implementation, I would rather say. The interface implementation. I implemented the interface and just added all my buttons to the interface and then let it work on the same piece of code on the same line. Here I did the formatting here so that it looks all good to me. Now let's talk about on click listener we have already talked about. So let's comment this up and let's talk about on long click listener. Has anybody used the long click listener on their Android devices? How do you delete a message thread? How you do that? Everyone. That's correct. So there is a different event for it. It is called the long click event. You just throw it up here. I'll just keep the same conditionals, alright? Just the swapping of elements. Same conditionals, same everything, right? Just the change will be on long click listener. Implementation of long click listener and also the necessary action against them, right? And then I'm just good to run this up. All right, let me go back to Stephen here. Stephen, I just assume I'm not going too fast here. Let me know, mate, if it is going too fast here. So I click long here. I click long here and the image will change. I click long here and the image will change. I hope, Stephen, you're here with me. Any doubts, any queries here? Because that is very important for me to understand whether I'm on the right track as far as my pace is concerned with everyone. That's correct, Rachit. Rachit, you can implement multiple things at a time. All you need to do is just do a comma and call on click listener here. Alright, that is how you can do that. I'll just show it to you. Alright, Stephen, do you want me to show the inline one or do you want me to come again with the interface implementation? Just let me know, Stephen, so that I can cover that part up. Alright, so Stephen, if you see here, I have implemented the on long click listener. And what I'm doing here is I'm attaching my on click listener to every button. I hope you understand why am I using this reference, because I'm attaching it to the object of this class. Right? Stephen, just let me know if this is not clear. and I do it at this here. Once I'm done, so I have to implement the on-click listener. So what I'll do is I'll just delete this up and uncomment this piece of code which I had already created. Alright, and here I check whatever button was getting clicked. So if it was button 1, I show a different image. If it was button 2, I show a different image, and if it was button 3, I show a different image. This ID attribute is being passed on from the view that is getting clicked. Stephen, just let me know if there is any doubt, any sort of clarification that you need on any piece of code. I hope this is clear to everyone. Any person having any doubts? The on-click listener, on-long click listener, also the inline implementation of the on-click and the on-long click. Instead of the for the on-long click, you will be using on-long click listener. Set on-long click inside the new interface, create a new on-long click listener, and that is how you will be working with it. Let me also tell you about on-touch listener, which one, the one that you are going to cover all by your own. The on-touch listener will give you access to few methods, which is on-key up, on-key down, and on-action move, all right, or the movement event. So there you will be playing around with these 3 events, like the action up, action down, action movement. On-key listener will give you the keystrokes, like what is the enter keystroke, or say backspace keystrokes. So all the keystrokes will be handled with the help of the on-key listener. So this is an assignment. This is an assignment for the on-key and the on-touch listener for everyone. You all have to try out the on-key and on-touch listener. And let me also do one more thing here. I'm sharing with you. That's correct, Rachit. I'm just telling you that. These are few of our IDs here. One is this one, and then the other one is support@edureka.com or say .in. All right. So first one, email ID is of mine. So you can, if you want to submit it directly to me, you can submit it to me on my respective emails, or you can also submit it on support@edureka.in. All right. So I hope everybody has got the email IDs here. Can you all just confirm? All right. Now let's talk about, will you be sharing this code with us? Yes, Naveen. After the end of the class, when you will be getting the video session, you will be getting all the sample code with you, with the video session. All right. As I said, Praveen, whenever you will be implementing, I'll show you here. Whenever you will be implementing an on-touch listener, all right, you have to override the following methods. See here. Motion event, it will give you an event, motion event, and here you see you can get the view v.getID using the view.getID. You can similarly get the view and handle all the motion event. Like if I say, I'll show you here. You can see the various events like the button action down, action up. You can see the various events here. You can go through the events and just set all the events accordingly. Yeah, what exactly is the X position, what exactly is the Y position. So that is how you can work on it with help of event listeners. This is for on touch, and similarly if I talk about on click or say on key, you associate an on key listener. So on key listener will be associated with what? Can anybody tell me? An edit text. You'll be associating an on key listener with an edit text. All right. And here you can see that. Capture the key event, whichever key event was tracked up, and then you can handle it inside this on key event. Praveen. All right. I think this insight would be enough for everybody to work on the on key and the on touch listener. As again, if there is any problem, I'm always there to help you up. You can just write me an email and then I'll be responding back to your emails. All right. So that way, I think we can do it up if there is any problem throughout the week. All right. If there is nothing, I expect that you all will be submitting. That's correct. I'm on Skype, Naveen. I'll just share my Skype IDs with you all. There is a Skype support that we carry out for Edureka. All right. On that, we have a few of our colleagues here which do provide you support. So they are also on the very good technical aspect. So I think you can also, first of all, you should just go on to the Skype support for Edureka, which is support.edureka at Skype. On Skype, you have to find out support.edureka, and then you'll be adding up on Skype, and I'll share mine as well. So this is my Skype ID. All right. If you want, you all can add me up on Skype as well. All right. So that is how we can plan out things. We can just try out new things by ourselves, and also you can also ask me any time of the day. All right. So that is how we can just work around together as a unit in order to learn more. Let's talk about supporting multiple screens. So Android runs on a variety of devices that offer different screen sizes and densities. The Android system provides you with various APIs that allow you to control the application's UI for a specific screen size. Let me tell you about this. For example, you have a 10 inches device, you have a 4 inches device. But what you want is you want to have a different layout for a 10 inches device, and you want to have a different layout for a 4 inches device, which is very evident. Like the text should be bolder on a 10 inches device as compared to a 4 inches device, and kinds of stuff. Android gives you that behavior also. You can create separate folders. See the separate folder structuring. Place all the necessary files under the separate folder structuring. Create a separate folder like we did for values-de. You do it for under the layout, for layout-small, layout-large, layout-extra large. What is the value range? You can see that. The extra large screens are actually 960 cross 720. Large are 640 cross 480. Then we have normal, then we have smalls. Right? So depending on the screen size, you can place appropriate files inside the application resources under the layout folder. It's layout-small, layout-large, layout-extra large, and then have different layouts for different kind of devices. I hope the supporting multiple screens is fairly easy for everyone to understand. Very much like the way we did for the various locates. Any person having any doubts here in understanding the multiple screen size support here? Will the assignments be uploaded? I think Rachit, I'll be monitoring the assignments. These set of assignments that we have is for batch to batch. We have them specific to a batch. I give different set of assignments to different batches. All right. So we won't upload them anywhere, but we can share it across. Like whichever student has got the best assignment done, we can share it with all the fellow teammates or say the batchmates. All right. So I think we can do it like that. If a person has done exceptionally good work, then we can definitely share it across the batchmates. I hope this sounds good. This idea sounds good to everyone. All right. So any questions, any queries in the topics that we have covered today? So we have the last 15 minutes we have for question and answers. So any person having any of the doubts that we took or we talked about today, you can respond back onto the chat window. Anything not specific to the particular today's class, you can always ask me that also. So any questions, any queries, anything that you want me to improve upon? Praveen, I think what is the emulator that you have created? Can you just let me know? This is usually a problem. This particular problem that you have created is usually a Nexus 7. That's correct. All right. So it is a Nexus 7 problem that is usually happening here. Right. Just try out on some other device because I too faced it up sometimes. And also I would suggest to everyone that whenever you are creating emulators, do not create the large size emulators because it is actually in a way a a little complex to manage. Just create an emulator. I'll show you which one I usually create. I usually create this one, 4-inch device, because it is a lot smaller and better to manage in terms of emulators. Otherwise the tablets are a lot bigger in size and it just takes a whole lot of time to load. Alright, I was coming back to Naveen. Alright Naveen, have your problem got resolved now? The one that you were asking about? The project property is not getting loaded? Alright Prabha, I'll just tell you if you want to add up any background image. Alright, again Naveen, if you have any problems, just respond back or say you can write me an email or you can get in touch with me on Skype. Alright, no problems Morgan, I understand that. I understand that completely. That is what I wanted. It's like, alright, I'll just make sure that I do it a lot slower in the coming classes. Alright, so here is the query that I had from Prabha. If I want to add a background image to my application, how to do that? If you see Prabha, I have the activity main. It will be activity specific. It won't be the application specific. It will be activity specific. If you want to add a background image, just go here, the view group, which is the parent, and say background equal to suppose the image one, and you can do it like this. Now this is being set as the background to your particular activity. Prabha, just let me know if this is not clear. Alright, so that is how you can do it up. Any other questions from anyone? Anyone having any more doubts? Not specific to this particular session. You can talk about anything out of this world. Should I assume that whatever has been taught today is clear to everyone and I should get the assignments in my inbox by, say, by Friday, coming Friday? Can I expect that all? Alright, can we use getX method on touch? That's correct, Rachit, that is what I told you. It's like on touch gives you the X and Y coordinates. Whenever I change in any code, do I need to rerun app and need to launch an AVD again? No, in that case, Praveen, you need not launch the AVD again, but you need to rerun the application. AVD, once you have started the AVD, it's like you have booted the device. So the number of times you do a run, it will all load up new APKs onto it. So AVD need not be closed every time. You can just let it run every time. Say, start the AVD and just forget about the AVD. All right, any other questions from anyone? All right, so just a few suggestions, few things that I want to know from you. I got a few suggestions, like first of all, the pace was a little higher for everyone. Just let me know. The pace was a little higher for everyone. It's something that is complained by Stephen and Morgan. I'll make sure that the pace is a lot slower in the coming classes, Stephen. All right. And apart from that, any suggestions for me as an instructor which I need to inculcate, you can all tell me onto the chat window. All right, Rajit says maybe quizzes. Rajit, you do not worry on that aspect. It is just that since we are in the first class, I did not emphasize much on the quizzes, but you are going to have a torrid time in the coming sessions for sure. Yes, Morgan. If you see here, there's a very good addition to Edureka web page. Have you all seen that? I was actually amazed by this particular addition that they have done. Have you, anybody, have you ever been to the discussion here on the Edureka? Anyone? Ajay has been there. So Ajay, did you find this new feature good? When we can see this today's recorded session? I think by the end of day today, Praveen, you'll be getting all this into your inboxes. All the recordings in your inboxes. That's correct. That's correct. Ajay has already seen that. All right, let's. What is it? Is it not taking my Facebook account here? All right. I go into my courses. I go into Android development here. You see a discussion forum here. All right. So this is something which we have added recently, and you can just see, add up a new topic, create a support ticket, check the ticket status. So we have got a lot many things added up here. I would request everyone, every single attendee to just go through it once. All right. Just go through it once, because this is something which is going to help everyone. All the fellow batchmates, all the people who are learning Android can also contribute to it. Me as an instructor can provide my inputs. Other fellow instructors can also provide their inputs. All right, just my suggestion is to everyone, just go through it once, the discussion forum that we have for everybody, every single individual. All right. All right. I think that is it from my side. I think this is all that I had to share with everyone in today's class. I hope to see you all in the class in the coming week. Just remember, there's a feedback form that is coming up after the class. Everybody has to fill up their feedback form. All right. So this is all that I have. Have a very good day. Take care. Bye-bye.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected.